Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. I'd like to thank my co-hosts, Shannon Lane, Newmark Knight Frank, Drew Hanlon, Ethan Milrod, Go To Tech, Daley Tipton, Evolution Energy Partners, for giving me a hand with our interviews today as co-hosts. And Ethan, could you please give us a rundown on who we have on the air today?
Sure, Herb. We have a great show ahead. We have including David Blenk, President and CEO, Livengrin Foundation, David Jacowitz, President, Evolution Financial Group, Steve Sweeney, President, NEMR Total HR, and Stan Kanevsky, President and CEO, Airsled.
Let's get to our first guest, David Blenk, President and CEO of Livengrin Foundation. David, what is Livengrin Foundation? What do you guys do?
Livengrin does addiction treatment. We help people who are suffering from alcohol and drug abuse.
How many folks did you help last year?
We served 3,000 people last year.
Wow. And where are you from originally?
I was born in Salem County, New Jersey, about a half hour outside of Philadelphia.
And how many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
I have 2 brothers and a sister. I am 2 of 4.
All right. And what was going on with you 8 to 14? You mentioned to me that, very proudly you got involved with the Boy Scouts. And how did you get involved with the Boy Scouts?
I was very involved with Boy Scouts. My older brother pulled me in, and I started it. I went all the way to Eagle Scout.
Huh. So how young were you when you ended up an Eagle Scout?
I was 17 years old.
Why was that so important to you?
Because it gave me a chance to succeed, a chance to be in front.
What are you talking about? Tell me more about that.
You build leadership when you're in Boy Scouts. You start at the beginning, at the youngest, and you end at the top of the pack.
Were you ever involved with pulling the other scouts together into certain activities?
Absolutely. As a patrol leader, that's what I did.
Like what? Tell me more. Mm-hmm.
You would get them together to run a sled in the wintertime, to go start a fire together in a competition and boil water. You would bring people together to do first aid and work as a team.
So as a kid, as a scout, becoming an Eagle Scout, you were naturally organizing the other kids. I'm wondering, does that have anything to do with your role nowadays as the president and CEO of Livengrin Foundation?
It does. It's exactly the same thing I do now, organizing a team to go out and help people with addiction.
Huh, how about that? All right, Drew?
David, you mentioned you also enjoyed playing sports and were athletic as a youth. What would your teammates tell us about you?
They would tell me that I would play whatever position it needed to be to make the team successful.
Wow, what does that mean today?
It means today that I do the same thing. I ask my team to do things, but it's nothing that I wouldn't be willing to do myself.
Mm-hmm. Ethan?
David, tell us a little bit about mom and dad.
Mom and dad were both there for me growing up. My dad worked full-time for a large corporation, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom who nurtured us and grew us.
Who would you say you're more like, mom or dad?
Probably more like mom, especially in my early years, a little more like my dad today.
How so? Tell us a little more about how you're like your mom.
My mom would go out and make sure that people would connect with people, and we would go and connect with people the same way. She'd make sure that we had dinner on the table, make sure that we were ready for school in the morning. And I do that with my team here and with my family.
It really prepared you for what you're doing today?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Shannon?
David, tell us about when you first realized the impacts of addiction.
I was actually not even in addiction treatment. I wasn't working in the field at all. I was buying blighted urban houses and renovating them. I was losing my tools. I was losing my copper pipes and my cabinets off the wall to people suffering from addiction, and knew I had to address it differently.
So tell us a little bit more. You were trying to help these people that were actually stealing from you.
Yes, we were working in neighborhoods to try to renovate neighborhoods, and inevitably you bring new investment into a blighted urban area, and there are people that are suffering from addiction that need help, and they're going to try to take it to fuel their addiction. There's another way to get them well.
But you didn't get all angry and upset and pissed? I mean,
all the time. I absolutely got angry, and that's why I had to come up with a new way to try to make sure I didn't lose my copper pipes.
What was that way?
It was to get involved in addiction treatment and to deal with it on the front end instead of dealing with it on the back end, to address it directly.
Whoa. Daly?
Tell us about how your childhood. How young were you when you started making money?
I was probably around 12 years old. I would go mow grass. That's what I did in the summertime, from the time school ended till the time school started.
And how'd you get into that?
My mom got me into it. She would be active in the neighborhood. She would hear what neighbors needed their grass mowed, and then I'd go knock on the door.
So you just filled that void where you saw that.
Yes.
That's kind of the same way we're hearing about how you got into addiction treatment. So how does that carry all the way through?
That carries completely through. There's a problem that needs to be solved, and I'll step in with a way to try to solve it.
Mm-hmm. Well, without your ego involved, it sounds to me, as opposed to bringing your ego involved, you just like to. Why are you smiling now? Why?
Because I do have my own ego, but part of my ego is about coaching other people to be successful in what they do. And if they're successful, then I'm successful, and my ego gets fulfilled.
Tell me more about that. Where'd that come from?
I think it came from growing up in a tight family with two brothers and a sister, all very close in age, and the need to play our role in that family dynamic, and my desire to be seen in that dynamic.
Drew, what else are you thinking?
I find it interesting that, there seems to be a competitive spirit over the top of your family. And I'm just, would you say that's true?
Yes. I grew up, I was less than a year younger than my older brother. So he was a year taller, a year bigger. And I would always try to be of equal stature as him.
And did your parents, did they support this?
Yeah, I think they did. They wanted us all to be individuals, but all of us to excel in our own way.
And what's the ultimate impact of growing up in an environment like that?
I think it makes me a better team player and a better leader for Livengrin.
So on one hand, it sounds like you guys were really competitive as kids, but it sounds to me on the other hand like you were one unit. So there's like a black and white thing going on there. Am I seeing that?
Yeah, you're seeing it exactly as it was. There were days where we would sit around the dinner table and it would be like a board meeting. And there were other days we would sit around the dinner table and it would be like a counseling session.
So how's that helped you build this organization, Livengrin?
Again, because I do very much the same thing as we did in that dynamic. I make sure that my team members know what they need to do and go out and get it done.
So it sounds.
You referred to yourself earlier on as the captain. I think you said the captain's got to be on the bridge or something like that. What do you mean?
Yeah. Throughout COVID, I had the opportunity. I sent staff home to work from home because they can do their job remotely. But I've come to work every day because I feel like the captain needs to be on the bridge to lead the ship and make sure it's moving in the right direction.
Yeah, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel like I'm needed in the organization and that I'm the underpinning of what's keeping things moving forward.
What makes you the most proud of what you're doing today?
I see people when they come to us and they're hurting, they're angry, they're in pain, and I see them 30 days or 60 days later and they look like you or me, and they've gotten that substance out of their body and they know a path to approach life in a much healthier way.
Do you ever talk to any of these people? I mean, it says here you're the president and CEO. You're like the hot dog. Do you ever talk to any of these people?
I do, actually, and it's very interesting to hear the stories that brought them to us and the change in perspective in the time that they're with us.
Why do you bother doing that? Why don't you go sit in your fancy office and drink cocktails and stuff?
Because at the end of the day, we serve one another, and it's in making each other work as a community that we get stronger, and that makes me feel better in the things that I do.
What makes you feel better? I'm not sure I understand that. Give me that again.
Knowing that somebody came to us suffering and in pain, and knowing that they leave our treatment program with a path to wellness. So they're well. They have an approach to life that doesn't include that substance that they've been abusing.
So you find healing meaningful?
Yes, I find that very meaningful.
What do you find meaningful?
That somebody has an opportunity to be themselves again. When somebody's suffering from addiction, there's a monster inside of them, and they have a chance to get that monster out of them and approach life completely differently, maybe in some ways with more of the value that I approach life.
Hey, David, I'm wondering in a weird way, are you glad that your copper pipes were stolen?
Yes, I am. because like, buildings are buildings and they're sort of the environment where they exist, but people are much more dynamic and much more interesting in the way they manifest in what they do in recovery.
David, what's the website address for Livengrin Foundation?
It is simply livengrin.org.
Let me have that one more time, please.
Livengrin.org.
We've been speaking with David Blenk, President and CEO of Livengrin Foundation here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com. To learn more about our executive leaders, that's executiveleadersradio.com. We will be back in a moment right after this break. Don't go away. You now can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Simply visit executiveleadersradio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your advisors. Yes, this radio and online social media exposure is free and quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit executiveleadersradio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce David Jacowitz, who's the president of Evolution Financial Group. David, what is Evolution Financial Group? What are you guys doing?
We're a full-service, holistic financial planning organization.
And who do you help and how do you help them?
We help individuals and business owners have more peace of mind in their financial picture.
Mm-hmm. And where are you from originally?
Brooklyn, New York.
How many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
I have one stepbrother, and he's 15 years younger than me.
One stepbrother. How come you have a stepbrother?
My parents got divorced when I was 9.
Your parents got divorced when you were 9. How'd that make you feel?
Frustrated, angry.
What are you talking about? Tell me more.
My mom we had to move, and my mom had to go out and get 3 jobs to support us because she didn't have a college education or a career prior to that. So that was, to see that was very frustrating, to see her have to suffer.
So how young were you when you started making money?
About 12.
What were you doing?
I did snow shoveling, picking up leaves for people, doing hedge trimming, whatever I could to find a way to make a buck.
Whose idea was that?
Pretty much mine.
Why?
I wanted to help my mom. I saw how much she was struggling. And so I wanted to do anything I could, even if it was $10.
What's that have to do with what you do for a living nowadays?
I don't want to see other people end up in those types of situations.
What are you talking about?
If they have better plans in place, then they're less likely to end up in a situation where it's very much of a struggle.
Drew?
Yeah, but tell us more about your mom, and seeing her roll up her sleeves and do what she had to do. What was the impact of that?
It made me value hard work. It made me value money. It made me value what people are willing to do to get done what they need to get done.
Did it inspire you to see your mom work so hard?
It did. It was frustrating and sad, but it was also inspiring to see her just day in and day out hustle.
And when you're faced with like a tough decision at the office, what do you hear your mom whispering in your ear?
I always hear her say that it could always be more difficult. It could always be worse. Other people have it much worse than whatever this decision or situation may be.
Ethan?
David, we noticed there's an American flag there behind you. Who's that in honor of?
My grandfather fought in Korea.
What did your grandfather mean to you, David?
He was really the father figure in my life. He was the person that I think really helped mold me as far as learning how to be a business person and learning how to be a caring and helpful individual that wants to help people in any way possible.
How did he teach you that?
Just by his actions. It wasn't so much as what he said, more as just seeing what he did.
Weren't you sharing with us earlier that he owned some Hallmark stores in New York City? And tell us about how they played a part in your life.
Yeah, he owned 3 Hallmark stores when I was growing up in New York City. And I got to work in them when I was 12, 13, 14 years old. That really helped me learn how to talk with people in a business sense, but also getting to see how he treated his employees, how he treated his customers. Just getting to see how he interacted with people was a huge influence for me.
You still hear your grandfather telling you things each day?
Oh, every day.
What are some of the things he tells you?
That you can do anything that you put your mind to, that, don't worry about every little thing until it's something to really worry about. Always do what's right first.
Sean?
Those are the things that I remember hearing him say to people and have really stuck with me.
Shannon?
David, in the green room, you mentioned your son, Ari. What have you learned from him that you bring with you to work every day?
I've learned from him, just the innocence of being a child, and seeing how happy he is at the smallest things. And when I'm getting wrapped up in something that seems to be small potatoes, but I'm making a big deal out of it, I think to him and I say, he's the most carefree. It's great to be that way, but he's so carefree, nothing really bothers him. And so I try to remember that when little things get in my way.
Daly?
So we talked a lot about your family. What was going on at school? What did you sports and things like that when you were younger?
I played baseball, football, basketball, you name it, any sport that I could. I just loved sports and the competition and the team environment.
So in those team environments, did you have anyone that really influenced you?
Absolutely. One of my football coaches when I was about 13, 14 years old, Dan, he was just the most positive influence and positive person that I've ever met.
Did it make you a better competitor? Tell us about competition.
Absolutely. When he always used to say, you reinforce, you can do it. You can come back from this. You can recover from this interception, whatever the case may be. Just keeping everything positive, but also at the end of the day, he said, you got to respect your teammates. I mean, not your opponents. Even though in the competition you're trying to win, at the end of the game, you shake hands and you respect your opponents.
David,
how large that in business today?
I'm sorry?
You apply that in business today?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I never talk badly about our competition.
David, how large or how small is your team?
We have 51 people.
What's your role in the team?
I'm the head coach. That's my job. My job is to help people, to lead them to get the most out of what their talents allow.
How young were you when that talent showed up? And give me a specific example.
So when I was about 9, I was playing in a baseball game, and the coach said, hey, why don't we try you out as a pitcher? And immediately we realized that I could throw the ball harder than anybody else. And so that was a big confidence booster for me, but also realized that I had something special there from a talent perspective.
What are you talking about? What do you mean?
Meaning that I could do something very, very well, that other people maybe didn't have that same ability. And it gave me something to really focus on.
What's that have to do with your role as president of Evolution Financial Group?
I think it translates in the sense that I've figured out over the years what I do really well and really try to focus on that, and then surround myself with a great team of people for the things that I don't do very well.
So what do you do really well?
I think I motivate people very well, and I think I lead very well in the sense of being able to get the whole group to come together, get everybody to work towards a common goal.
Yeah, but I thought in business, if somebody's not doing their job, you just fire them. If you don't, get out of here, right? You just get rid of people.
I don't believe that. I believe you try to help them. You try to coach them. You try to, maybe it's a different role. If you have somebody who's trying very hard, sometimes they may just not be in the right role for their talents.
And you understand not only how to coach, but you understand you intuitively understand where people fit. You have a feel for people.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I think that I'm able to figure out pretty quickly what people's strengths and abilities are.
So on one hand, people may think you're a wealth manager. On the other hand, you're really a people figure-outer.
Absolutely. I'm a relationship builder, a people builder, more so than anything else.
But that's what you're doing with your clients as well. You're trying to figure out who they are and what you can do to give them a hand. Same thing as you're doing for your team.
Absolutely.
What's the website address of your organization?
evolutionfinancialgroup.net.
Give me that again.
evolutionfinancialgroup.net.
We can speak with David Jacowitz, who's president of Evolution Financial Group here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com. To learn more about our executive leaders, we'll be back in a moment right after this break. Don't go away. And we're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, and we'd like to introduce Steve Sweeney, who's president of NEMR Total HR. Steve, what is NEMR Total HR? What are you guys up to?
We're an outsourced human resources company that helps small to mid-sized businesses with compliance, employee relations, payroll, and employee benefits.
Where are you from originally?
From South Jersey, moved around a lot when I was younger.
How come you moved around a lot when you were younger?
Parents were divorced. When I was about 10, we hopped around all over South Jersey.
And how many brothers and sisters do you have, and where are you in the pecking order?
Older sister, 5 years older, brother, 18 months younger.
And you shared with us earlier something about your brother. Would you please share that with our listening audience?
Sure. So my younger brother has Down syndrome. So he currently lives in a group home with his friends.
What was your relationship with your younger brother, with your parents being divorced?
We had a great relationship, but of course, he was always more like a son than a brother, caring for him, me and my sister.
Did you take that on, or, did you resent that responsibility?
I took it on, albeit it was challenging, but I took it on. He's my brother, and, I wouldn't be the person I am today without him.
What do you mean you wouldn't be the person you are without your brother?
Well, caring for someone that's incapable of, care for themselves, it gives you empathy and, shows you, things about yourself that you probably may not have known otherwise.
What's that have to do with this, with your role in this business? It says you're president of NEMR Total HR. What's that caring for your brother have to do with your building this business? I don't understand.
Well, I mean, we serve thousands of employees, and, human challenges require a high level of empathy. And I don't think I would have ever had that without, the dynamic of our family when I was younger.
Oh, now I understand. Ethan?
Steve, it sounds like you and your sister are really a team.
We definitely are. We may not have always been that way when we were younger, but when when I was a teenager, I think I realized how much of a team we really were. And that carries over to today. We're really a strong team. We work together.
Can you remember a time when you were a teenager that you came together as a team?
Sure. When we were younger, my grandmother lived with us, and it wasn't the best relationship. My grandmother and mother didn't have a great relationship, but we all lived under one roof. And, my sister and I think realized that we needed each other to survive that dynamic. And, it was challenging, but that's where we really kind of leaned on one another.
And you just mentioned you and your sister work together now, huh?
We do. So I'm the president, and my sister is the VP of HR and operations. So she's pretty much
the two of you.
We're two very different people, and we balance each other. If you've ever studied the EOS model, I'm more of the visionary and she's the integrator.
Drew?
Steve, I'm curious about Mom and what she was like growing up.
My mom was amazing, the matriarch of the family, selfless, would do anything and everything to make sure that we had everything we needed, even if it meant she had nothing.
What did that mean to you to watch her, give back so much of herself?
I mean, it was hard, because you saw everything that she went through, working multiple jobs and trying to get a business off the ground, and, late nights and early mornings, and we didn't see, a whole lot of her, but, she always made time to, have the family have dinner together and make sure that we had, packed lunches and everything we needed.
What's the impact of seeing your mom work so hard today?
Well, it makes me work even that much harder. She gave everything that she could to make sure we had a great life, even though we had nothing growing up. And, it makes me work that much harder to make sure that my family and my children have the same thing and have more than, even opportunity than I did.
Shannon?
Steve, in the Grin room, you mentioned that even though you didn't have much, your parents made the decision to send you to private school. And in particular, Father Ralph, the president of the school, had an impact on you. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so our parents sent both my sister and myself to Bishop Eustace, which is in South Jersey. And, Father Ralph, who was the principal and a great figure for that school, was a similar type of person, to my mom. He made sure that everybody there, had everything they needed, even if they couldn't afford it or couldn't, remain at school. He always figured out a way to make sure that you could remain there. It was more of a family than a school.
And what did you learn from Father Ralph that you still carry with you today?
Just helping people no matter what the circumstance. Father Ralph always figured out a way to help everybody no matter what the need was. That's definitely carries through. I mean, I'm always the person that's trying to figure out how to help everybody. And there's always a way to help someone, even if it doesn't seem like there is in the beginning.
Daly?
So you talk about Mom, the financial challenges, multiple jobs, and how did it come into the prep school? I mean, obviously there was a cost associated with that.
So my mom and dad, even though we really didn't have much, they just banded together and figured it out. Even though they were divorced and didn't always see eye to eye, they definitely came together, for me and my sister to figure out how to get us there.
So when you entered the prep school, you're kind of, fish out of water there, or tell us about how it made you feel.
It was a challenge. I mean, prior to that, 5 years, 5 different schools I was in, and then going into high school, I didn't know one person. So definitely my comfort level wasn't high, especially being surrounded by a lot of affluent people. But I was immediately surrounded by people that, wanted to lift you up and make you feel good and be inclusive. So that definitely, it changed my life for sure.
So how do you apply what you learned there in your work today?
We're always inclusive. We have a hierarchical structure as a company, but more of a flat organization. Always have an open door policy, hear everybody's opinions, voices, make sure everybody, has what they need to succeed.
Steve, how large or how small is your team?
We're 31 people.
Mm-hmm. So how's this family stuff show up? Give me a specific example of how this family stuff shows up amongst your 31 people.
Like I just mentioned, we're more of a flat organization, and when people have
do you ever anybody specifically ever come to you, or have you heard of a situation where you went to one of your teammates and you did something that wasn't necessarily on the books? They didn't teach you in college. What are you smiling about? The answer is yes. Give me the example.
An employee that came to us and, was going to lose their home. We lent them money so that they didn't have to.
Wait. Why'd you do that? Why'd you lend them money? There's no law that you have to do that. You don't hear that employers do that stuff. Why'd you do that?
Because we have a motto, it's always do the right thing in our office. And, that goes, throughout. So, I take that position very hard on my shoulders that, not only do I have 31 people, but we also have their families too.
How long have you guys been in business?
21 years.
Is that the only time you ever went out of your way to help somebody?
No, I mean, we've had an employee who crashed their car and, couldn't afford a car. So we paid for it to get fixed. Had an employee who was very, very sick, had to work from home for an extended period of time, even though we didn't do work from home. I mean, the examples go on and on.
So, but as an employer, I mean, I read the newspapers. You don't hear about any of this stuff. And all you hear is the bad stuff. But you're telling me that you went out of your way for your people. Why would you do that?
You do it because it's the right thing to do. I mean, the line of work we're in too, we have many employers that also do that. So, I mean, I think that
also do what?
Go out of their way to do the right thing for their people.
Why?
Because as human beings, the only thing we have is other human beings. So, you have to take care of each other at a certain level. And if you don't, then, making money and having a business really doesn't mean anything.
That means a lot to you?
Absolutely.
What's the website address of this organization known as NEMR Total HR?
It's NEMRHR.com.
Let me have that one more time.
NEMRHR.com.
We've been speaking to Steve Sweeney, president of NEMR Total HR here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. And we will be back in a moment right after this quick break. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, Executive Leaders Radio. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Simply visit executiveleadersradio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable. Yes, this radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit executiveleadersradio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors for free exposure. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Stan Kanevsky, who's president and CEO of an organization known as Airsled. Stan, what is Airsled? What are you guys doing?
Airsled is a small manufacturing company that makes products that are used to move and lift other heavier products.
So who uses your stuff?
A very typical customer is a appliance repair professional or a flooring contractor that runs into having to move refrigerators, washers, dryers, but we also serve engineers who run manufacturing facilities and need to move multi-thousand-pound equipment around for maintenance and installation as well.
Mm-hmm. And where are you from originally?
I was born in Kiev, Ukraine.
How young were you? How many brothers and sisters, and how young were you when you came to America?
I turned 5 just as we landed here or came to this country. I have a younger brother. He's 10 years younger than I am.
Mm-hmm. So you were 5 years old when you came to the U.S., and why did you come to the U.S.?
As Jews, my family was part of that group that was persecuted and made life was difficult there, so they decided to start fresh.
Mm-hmm. So when your parents moved from Kiev to America with their 5-year-old son, where'd you settle?
We moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Squirrel Hill was the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. And I guess you guys, the reason you were able to move is because you had a lot of money.
I wish that was the story, but we were sponsored by a Jewish organization that helped fund our journey from Kiev to the United States.
Mm-hmm. Didn't you tell me a story earlier where you and your dad, when you were 8 or 9 years old, were driving around together picking up aluminum cans? What was that all about?
Yeah, it was tough to make money. And my dad realized that we can collect aluminum cans and take them to the recycling center. So he and I would go around in his car to parks, go into trash cans, walk around the fields, and find aluminum cans to put into a bag and take to the recycling center.
What did you learn from picking trash cans and selling aluminum cans that has anything to do with the success of building as president and CEO of Airsled?
I think you have to be completely committed and involved to whatever that activity is, whether it's collecting cans or doing R&D or giving a customer an explanation about, why they want one model over another. You need to be completely committed to that moment.
Mm-hmm. Daley?
Let's talk about your transition coming to the United States. Obviously, you were entering school as you turned 5. Obviously, kindergarten wasn't too far off, first grade. So tell us about that. How was the language? And
yeah, it was. I was definitely different. My parents bought me flowers to take to school, which was common in Russia, but not something that American kids do. And my language wasn't clearly. I wasn't a native English speaker, but I watched a lot of cartoons and lost the accent, picked up the language, and assimilated as quickly as I could, because nobody wants to stick out when they're young.
Yeah, I found kindergarten challenging, and I could speak English. So, it seems to me you really minimized the challenge. How does that apply today?
Well, I think today the hard part with Airsled, as any business, is staying motivated, staying positive when you're facing obstacles, when you're facing rejection, when you're facing people looking at you, scratching their head. So you really need to be that perpetual optimist and push forward.
Mm-hmm. All right. Ethan.
And Stan, as a 5-year-old being uprooted from the Ukraine, did you understand why?
No, I really didn't understand why. We didn't talk about it at the dinner table. As I got older, of course, my parents explained to me the hardships that our family and our people endured, and I came to appreciate the sacrifice and the choices that they had to make to give me the life that I have now.
So what impact did that have on you, learning about that?
Well, I learned that it was really important to understand history and study it, because a lot of the lessons from history are always applicable in the present day. And it made me really respect and understand that sometimes you have to make a tough choice, a tough decision where the consequences and outcomes aren't always going to be clear, but you hope for the best. So making those tough choices is something that sometimes I'm forced with.
Are you a parent today?
Pardon me?
Are you a parent today?
I am. I have 2 children. I have a daughter, 12, and a son who's 10.
How do you pass those lessons on to them?
Well, I like to watch the news, and I like to use that as a jumping off point to discuss current affairs with them. My son likes things about the Second World War, which is an area that I like to read about. So I just like to let them know that history has a lot of wonderful, colorful lessons to be learned.
Drew?
And you told us earlier that you are very proud of your heritage. What did you mean by that?
Well, my parents and their fellow Jews had to hide who they were, and I feel very proud to not have to do that. It's not that I lead with that. It's just I feel that we've made great contributions. We can continue to be part of society. We don't have to flee. We don't have to practice our beliefs in the dark. So I just use kind of that background as a way to feel empowered to be who I am.
And how does being proud of your heritage, how does that affect your leadership style and your business?
I think that I like to be very transparent. I don't like to make people feel like they have to hide from me or hide thoughts. Open forum discussions. I elicit people's input about, the break room or machinery that they need to use in the production process. So that constant dialogue and transparency is important.
Shannon?
Dan, tell us a little bit about your mom and what she was like when you were growing up.
My mom, very strong woman, very focused on education, really ran the household, became very skilled in a number of different things. She was a metallurgist, she was a travel agent, she learned to prepare income taxes. So my mom was constantly on a quest for learning.
And what did she teach you that you bring with you into work every day?
Well, I think that it's actually interesting because the way that the society that they came from, you weren't rewarded for taking risks. And as I left, or I was thinking leaving corporate America to take on Airsled, they really were supportive of me taking that risk. So making that tough choice, that decision. So that kind of goes along with their whole backstory of leaving Russia and making that choice.
Mm-hmm. Daly?
So tell us about your education. Tell us about college.
Well, as I was growing up, I had a very strong creative side. I liked art. I liked cultural things. I was a writer. I was in journalism, and I remember declaring to my parents as I was going to study or planning for college that I wanted to become a journalist. And my parents had a much more technical track in mind for me, and they told me, they sat me down, and they said, "Well, Stan, an engineer could always become a writer, but a writer could never become an engineer. You're going to be an engineer." So that's the track that I ended up taking, and I'm very happy because, the other non-creative part of me was really a technical person, very hands-on fixer type. So I'm glad the choices that I made.
Do you still write?
I do. I do still write. When it comes to, as president of Airsled, I have to do a lot of the marketing, the creative side of video editing. So I get to tap into all those things that I thought I would never get a chance to tap into when I was studying engineering.
It sounds to me like that engineering background really helped you develop further Airsled. Am I correct about that?
Absolutely. We have been expanding our product portfolio, doing a lot of R&D. We're planning on some key launches of new items later this year, and I get to be a part of that. I get to drive that. I set the vision, and then I help with the execution.
Mm-hmm. Is your mom still around?
Oh, yeah. Both my parents are still around.
You talk to them about the business?
I talk to them about it very often. In fact, this has probably brought me closer to my father. Not that we had a bad relationship. He's an engineer, a mechanical engineer, so I've collaborated with him on design input and projects. So yeah, we're very close.
And Stan, what's the similarity between your mom and your wife?
They are both very determined, no-nonsense individuals. And when I say strong personalities, I mean that in the most complimentary manner. They're not wallflowers, and they're get-it-done type of ladies.
Website address of Airsled?
Airsled.com.
We've been speaking with Stan Kanevsky, President and CEO of Airsled here on Executive Leaders Radio. Ethan, can you give us a read down on who else we've had the opportunity to hang on with?
Sure, Herb. And we've had a great show today, including David Blenk, President and CEO, Livengrin Foundation, David Jacowitz, President of Evolution Financial Group, Steve Sweeney, President, NEMR, Total HR, and Stan Kanevsky, President and CEO, Airsled.
I would like to thank my co-hosts, including Shannon Lane, Newmark Knight Frank, Drew Hanlon, Ethan Milrod, Go2, Daly Tipton, Evolution Energy Partners, for giving me a hand structuring the questions. Hope we're providing our listening audience an educational and entertaining show. I'd like to thank our listening audience for listening. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a radio show. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. It's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. Thank you for joining us today. And tune in next week and have a nice day. Bye-bye.